On today's episode of the Lone Wolf Chat, we're going to talk about a really, really funny story. This story was released 3 weeks ago. It was on Vox. It's on Polygon. And it's about the internet's most beloved fanfiction site is undergoing a reckoning. Now, normally we talk about fanfiction. People bring it up in passing. People kind of shrug at it. But this is actually a particularly funny story. It's about the fact that one fanfiction broke archive of their own. Now, before I get into the article, let me just briefly talk about the websites that were used at the time. Now, I'm going to be 34 this year. I remember back in the day, before we had fanfiction.net, there were many, many sites dedicated to fandoms. I mean, they were toxic, but they weren't as bad as it is now. I mean, you had people that were the bad people in the bunch, but you didn't really care as much as you do now, but people are a little more sensitive this time around. But going back to the subject, there was only a few websites, and then years later, there's a website called fanfiction.net was born, and everybody posted fan fiction on there of any type, of any scenario, whether it be cringe or other things that shouldn't be said. I can't really say because of YouTube's algorithm, but there were situations that weren't deemed inappropriate, but they weathered the storm until I would say about 10, 15-ish years ago, there was a woman, a writer named Anne Rice, who pretty much told them to get their stuff off of her fan fiction off of her website, or she would sue. And there were a few others that filed suit. But what made Anne Rice very particular was she was very, very protective of her work, which can be understandable, but to do that to your fans in a psychotic fashion isn't exactly helpful. Now with the adaptation, here's the thing about Anne Rice. She's if you don't know who Anne Rice is, she wrote Dawn of the Dead, Queen of the Damned. Everybody knows, not Dawn of the Dead, I'm so sorry. Queen of the Damned, she wrote the Lestat Vampires, Interview with the Vampire, anything dealing with those type of genres. And I think the biggest crux of her story was she was really pissed that people were writing sexual fan fiction, because people often said that Lestat and see, it's been so long, I forgot his name. Lestat and Lewis, they were the most shipped couple out of all her works. And she didn't take great flattery. She took great offense, mostly because the characters do not have reproductive organs in order to reproduce, and people were making erotica stories. Plus, Anne Rice, I can go this is a whole different podcast about that. But Anne Rice is very protective of her work. There have been numerous occasions, not just fan fiction, where she wants her story to be adapted, but she wants exclusive rights, her and her son, to everything. She's like George Lucas, except unlike George Lucas, she actually knows how to write a script. But that's a whole different ballgame. But Anne Rice wasn't the only author to come up with that controversy. She's just the most well-known, and it caused fanfiction.net to ultimately change their policy. And that's when people were writing erotica stories. There were different genres of erotica that were made at that time, but then again they had to disavow certain things. Like, it wasn't just Anne Rice, it was P and Elrod, Archie Comics. So any of the Sonic comics that were made at that time, they just kind of moved over to the video game section. But that's what they did. Any Archie Comics, Dennis L. McKiernan, J.L. Ward, Laurel K. Hamilton, who wrote really good fiction books, Nora Roberts / J.D. Robb, Raymond Feist, Robin Hobb, Robin McKinley. It was a lot. And then around 2002, fanfiction.net started banning their NC-17 ratings on the account because there was new policy to promote readers to prompt readers to say whether over 17 or not, but you can just say yes. So some of the NC-17 material was removed and was moved to adultfanfiction.org, or what they do is they just kind of went to A03, and that's basically how A03 was made, which is archive of their own. But A03 is like fanfiction.net still around. People still use it. If you can't find stuff, this is how I word it. If you can't find stuff on A03, you're going to go to fanfiction.net to find the story. But A03 was basically created because of people basically got mad that fanfiction.net changed their policy, and A03 was born. It's more popular now than fanfiction.net, way more popular. And it's a nonprofit organization. They got a Hugo Award for best related work in 2019. They have it was originally a site called FanLib that was created with the goal of monetizing fan fiction, but you can't really monetize fan fiction because all you're doing is writing a fan work of a story that someone else already owns. So you kind of can't do that. And well, one thing led to another, and it became a very popular site. Now, not saying there weren't any controversies before I talk about this article. The most famous happened last year. It was called the boycott against the Zhaozhan incident. It's an online controversy that originated between the fans of Chinese actor Zhao Zhan and archive of our own users in mainland China. And Zhao Zhan is spelled Xiaozhan. That's the actual actor. It's pronounced, I believe, Zhao Zhan. And the incident started when internet censorship group Great Firewall of China blocked the fan fiction publishing platform Archive of Our Own in the country due to the concerns. Basically what happened was you had a bunch of obsessive fans who made fan fiction vulgar. They considered it vulgar and explicit. Basically, they wanted to have sex with him. It led to cyber violence and boycotting against Zhao Zhan and his fans, endorsed products, luxury brands. It basically caused a blow up here's the thing about other countries. They all have their own culture on how they want things to be said or done. And sometimes you offend people without meaning to offend them. Everybody has their own culture. And to be honest, instead of Zhao Zhan in the mainland China just ignoring it, they kind of made it bigger than it needed to be. Here's the thing about, and I promise you I'll get into the article. Here's the thing about fans, especially internet fans. The more fuel you give them, the worse it's gonna be. Sometimes it's better to ignore them rather than make the situation bigger than it needs to be. In Zhao Zhan's situation and his fan base in mainland China, the situation probably would have went away as soon as they ignored it. Certain things just blow up overnight, and then they go away after a couple weeks. This went on for about a year, and it was just, it was, you know what, I will say this. As a person, if I was an actor, I probably would find it pretty creepy. But at the same time, there is a level of flattery you have to take that you have a group of people who like you so much that they're willing to write erotica for you. But I do understand where people get creeped out. We've had incidents in our own country where people have acted like major creeps, and we've seen what ultimately, there's been shooting incidents. There have been many incidents. So I understand where a lot of people come from when they say, hey, maybe this shouldn't be acceptable or what have you. But, here's the thing. Like, I'm not taking the side of anybody in this situation. All I'm saying is sometimes it's better just to ignore the incident rather than make it bigger than it truly needs to be. But they called the 227 incident, and make a long story short, on July 14th, 2020, there was the social networking, Chinese social networking site Weibo posted basically, to make a long story short, they put in for fan restriction. They tried to make their statement, and then Zhao Zhan ended up just apologizing, even though he was creeped out by it. He just kind of apologized, because what happened was Weibo kind of closed a lot of accounts and made people angry, and you kind of created a divide, which why I said in the beginning that it's probably better if you don't say anything. And what this all started was the whole thing about Zhao Zhan. The reason why, you know, they were targeting him in erotica stories because he's a voice actor who he's an actor who starts on a series called The Untamed, which originally was an LGBT story, which isn't really LGBT because of China's restrictions, called Mo Dao Zu Shi. And the translation is Untamed, and they kind of had to tone down a lot of the LGBT stuff, and they're still toning down the LGBT stuff in the own novel, the web series, because there are certain things you cannot 100% will not do in China. They have a censorship board, and it is what it is. And it's an LGBT story. It's actually pretty good, but I understand, you know, both sides of the argument. That's all I'm saying about that subject. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of the podcast. You know, I've been talking about this situation. We're about 11 minutes in. But the title of the article I got from Vox is "The Internet's Most Beloved Fanfiction Site is Undergoing a Reckoning. A million-plus word story is holding A03's community hostage." The Archive of Unknown, the beloved Hugo-winning fanfiction platform, shorthanded, affectionately known as, we call it as A03, was famously created by fans for fam. It's a nonprofit. And then we go down the list of the article. Basically what happened was long-standing calls for A03. They're asking for people to moderate the account because you can write anything on A03 as long as you have the titles or the tags necessary. You can put it on there. And the reason why the moderators never really checked A03 is because it's a site that promotes free speech. No matter how nasty and how political it gets, they try really hard not to put their foot down on anything. But this time around, almost everybody who's part of A03 was basically saying, you guys need to do something about this. Now, you might be asking, what am I talking about? I'm talking about this one fan fiction that's like over 40 chapters long. And give me a second. I it's just, wow. And I was wrong. It's not 40 chapters. It's like 200 chapters. Now, having a long-standing fan fiction isn't really new on AO3, but the tagging system is ridiculous. It has over 1,700 tags. Now, let me give you a little rundown on the tagging system. The tagging system is used, let's say you want to read My Hero Academia, and you're a Deku and Bakugo shipping fan, or if you're a Deku and Todoroki fan. The tagging system is made so you can get Deku and Todoroki fanfic, but you don't get certain ticks on the box. Like, let's say you don't want Bakugo to be an abusive jerk or an ex-boyfriend. There's a tag for that. Or you want Bakugo to be an Omega and he's just resisting his nature and is in a ends up in a polyamorous relationship. These are just examples, people. You can put in a tag for that. Now, what this person particularly did is put over 1,700 tags. So imagine you going on the website and scrolling down over each particular tag. On a phone, you have to go through 2 pages at least to get to your fanfiction you want to get to. And this all kind of leads back to that previous article I was talking about, because it's called Sexy Times with Wang Xian, which is a fan fiction of the Chinese series The Untamed, which is a adaptation of the webcomic Mo Dao Zu Shi, which I have watched and it's pretty good in my opinion. But anyway, the whole point is it is long. It is so long. And then they put canonical in there. And people have been going online and expressing their dissatisfaction with the moderators because they feel like, hey, you need to do something about this fiction and their tags. And people have already tried to message this writer, and she says, I am not a part of the fanfiction community, really. I was just writing a story, which I call BS on, because this person keeps writing over 200 chapters of all the characters in sexy situations. The fact that you can write that much sex, just Jesus. Anyway, I mean, I read erotica, but my God, at least there's stuff going on in between, not just sexy times, but my God. I'm laughing at the situation because even people have used a Chrome like the article says, someone used a Chrome extension to block a fanfic with too many tags, but there's a simple code you can add to custom site skin to block the fic. But guess what? there's really no workaround. This person's called Virtual 1979. I'm not telling anybody to cyberbully this person. Please don't. There's an Asian-based writer of Chinese descent. They're 41. Just let them be. Please leave them alone. This is A03's jobs to kind of deal with the situation. But this is ridiculous that even on your phone, it takes 2 pages just to get through it. One person even said they spent 20 minutes or so of their life trying to scroll past the fic. And I'm just going to pull up A03 while we're on this right now. A03 Archive Our Own. Okay, so let's say I'm going to Archive Our Own. Let me just log into my account. Don't judge me. Fanfiction works. It works for me. You know, it's not for everybody. So, no, I don't want to change the password. So, I'm just going on right now. Let's say I'm going to, let me put in, let's go to video games. And I'm going to the Legend of Zelda. Let me see if it comes up while we're on the podcast. Does it really matter which one I pick? There's like 1,000 of them. Let's pick the... Wow, Breath of the Wild is not on here. Okay, Twilight Princess. Okay, so I'm scrolling through myself and I don't see it. So I'm thinking this is pretty much affecting people who are Daozushi. Let's put that in. Okay. I'm not pulling up. Okay, so let's put Sexy Times with Wang Xian. Let's do that. Sexy Times with Wang Xian. Oh, they took it off. Okay. So as of March 7th, I haven't been able to pull it up. Let me see if I can pull it up. Okay. Because I want to make sure. Oh my God. So this is funny, guys. When I put it in there, it says how to block Sexy Times with Wang Xian. Add to your site scan. So someone's already put in there effectively how to block this. And I'm going down. Annoying Times with Wang Xian. Lubin Oil not the same. Taxes Wang Xian. Wow, I'm not going to say everything that's on here. Wow, there are some thirsty... I shouldn't judge, but these are some thirsty people on this site. But, okay, so they took off Sexy Time Wang Xian. So this is what they said on here. The disruption caused by Sexy Times Wang Xian has led to referendum on A03's community standards and abuse on the platform. As the fic's notoriety has spread, so have the limitations. In the last week alone, mind you, this was published February 26. A03 has tried to remove at least 2 instances of actual trolling inspired by Sexy Times of Wang Xian. One user uploaded the entirety of The Great Gatsby, Jesus Christ, and another uploaded the entire of 1984, both as tags, meaning every word of the novel has turned into a tag and thus took up a huge amount of the space on the site's related navigation pages, just as Sexy Time Wang Xian does. But there's a difference between, I'm just going SCWW and it's clearly performative troll offshoots, both of which has since been removed. SCWW hasn't argued broken any rules about tagging, and its author insists that they're using sites exactly as it's designed to be used. In theory, it's hard to argue with that. The fic is 1 million words long. 1 million. After all, you can fit to be a lot of accurately tagged topics. So... the writer even said, I'm not tagging to beg for attention. Please make that very clear. People have gone back and forth. I'm sorry, that's just fun and hilarious that somebody just literally uploaded the entire book, The Great Gatsby, which is actually my favorite book of literature, in 1984. Just, that is ridiculous. People, here's the thing when it comes to fans or people who want to use the site. The only way people feel like they can get attention to take care of a situation is to do a negative thing. Basically, when they uploaded The Great Gatsby and the other person uploaded 1984, that's when the moderators said, hey, we might need to do something about this. It wasn't before then. It was basically later they said, oh, crap, we should do something about this. So that probably says a lot about A03. But again, the thing is with A03, they don't want to change their terms of service. Anybody can write anything. And but 2020, mind you, this all happened in 2020. We're in 2021, and we're still talking about this. And here's the thing about 2020. People, I think this article says it well. Throughout 2020, during sustained discussions across social media about structural racism and other toxic elements of fandom, A03 users repeatedly requested that the site add basic features that could help avoid involuntarily engaging with fics they found toxic or harmful. For example, currently there's no real way to officially sanction a writer who includes racist elements in their fan fiction. The site's abuse policy frequently asked questions doesn't mention race, and there's currently no way to warn readers about racially charged elements in a fic. You can warn readers about controversial fic topics like character death, non-consensual scenarios, and underage characters. Okay, the underage characters part, that's a whole different can of worms I don't want to talk about right now. And there are many readers who like to avoid engagement with fiction authors that they deem to be racist. Among these wide-ranging discussions, one of the most frequent requests was a function to block or hide individual users and their works, a function that would incidentally be incredibly handy in the case of a single author building a giant walls of tags. In other words, Sexy Times of Wangshan situation has direct links to early discussions about race and community moderation on the platform. So it's still a funny article that one fanfiction kind of broke A03. And here's the funny part about, reading fanfiction and writing fanfiction. A03 is probably one of the better tagged fanfiction sites compared to fanfiction.net, which is slowly, I swear that site's on life support, even though I think it's still a pretty cool site, and Wattpad or Tumblr. No one's going on Tumblr because the porn is gone. Let's just get it out there. People aren't going on there because they got rid of the porn. After they got rid of the porn, people kind of jump ship. DeviantArt, you can read fanfiction on there, but I think it's more art, just like Tumblr is. But people really don't gravitate to DeviantArt for fanfiction. Wattpad is terrible tags when it comes to fanfiction. They want to write their own webcomic series and scam people out of their money. That's a whole different topic for a whole nother day. I think I talked about this before. Anyway, and then you have A03. So A03 is pretty much the middle point between fanfiction.net and Wattpad. And that's why people really got angry and started talking about, this is not something I want to read. This is not something I want to talk about. Can we skip over this? Is there any way to talk about this? Because I feel uncomfortable. No, you were forced to sit there through those tags. But the bright side of this article and what this fanfiction did was it gave more awareness for the moderators to moderate their site more. Not everybody's going to be on board with what these people are talking about. And it's good that A03 is really taking the initiative to do better. But this is still a funny article that it's a sexy story is causing so much controversy. It was a sexy fan fiction. I mean, there are millions of sexy fan fiction out there. I mean, so many. I remember them back in the day before we even had fanfiction.net, but that's a whole different discussion for a whole nother day. But my goodness, it's still hilarious that this is the thing that broke A03, nothing else. Not even the Baku Deku shippers of My Hero Academia, the Fire Force shippers on Fire Force. No, this is the fan fiction that just broke all records. And it's hilarious that it took a sexy fan fiction to bring about change. Not the racist stories that were on A03, not the pedophilic stories that you can find on there, which is disgusting. Not the non-consensual relationships, not the school teacher, the teacher and student relationships. No, it was this particular sexy fan fiction. And I'm not trying to bash A03. I'm not trying to say it's a terrible website or anything like that. I do like A03. It's just that it says a lot when it takes a foreign fan fiction to fix your site and your people that are running the site. Now, like I said, the writer who wrote these fan fictions has already stated that they were not coming out to intended to annoy other people, even though there are constant people that have harassed this person over their fan fiction, have messaged them, and they defend that they're just using the algorithm as is intended, and it's probably true. They're using the algorithm as intended. It's just this is just an unforeseen circumstance that happened. Now, I've been talking about for 25 minutes for this story, so I'm going to wrap it up here. I want to thank you out for listening. If you like what you're hearing, please rate and subscribe on iTunes, Spreaker, Google Play, or Stitcher, or wherever you listen to your podcast. I do have a website, which is lonewolfchat.com. This will also be posted on my YouTube page. If you like, you can send a review there. And I will chat with you guys again soon. Bye-bye.